by opening your mind to a lot of this, it's hurting them in the sense that they got to start believing something different than they've been told.
Yeah, and that's the challenge, and that's where we see a lot of the resistance. And but I think that that also serves the agenda right now for people being so upset and so shocked because now it puts them in reaction mode. It puts them in a state where it's easier to drive the herd that way because they're just reacting and following where everybody else is going and kind of doing what
They
they're
are.
told.
And also, I think it has to work that way, Dennis, because as much as I'd like them to say, oh, let's get together and have a negotiation and fix things, that's not what it's intended to be. And I'll tell you
No,
why
not at
it's
all.
not. Because how do you break it? If you get along well and make an agreement, nothing's broken. So
Yeah.
the idea is that they have to break it. How are they going to break it, in my opinion, is by Trudeau doing what he's doing, that arrogant little ass, and saying, well, if you do that to us, we're going to hit you 10 times harder. Well, guess what? People have to
Yeah.
realize what a tariff is. They obviously don't know.
Tonight, we're going to wing it. We're going to freestyle it. I've got the great Marty Hibbs on the line, but there's so much going on in the world to talk about. I don't think we're going to have trouble picking a topic and seeing where it leads us. Marty, how are you, my friend? It's so good to see you tonight.
Hey, nice to see you too, Dennis. I don't get to see you that often now. You're kind of not online all the time when I go on there. Did you?
Yeah, I'm just doing the podcast now. I'm not part of the debrief team, which I miss terribly, but I
Yeah, I
love
miss
I
you on
love the
there.
chair that I'm in now. Yeah,
Yeah,
I miss you guys.
yeah.
Um, but I love the chair that I'm in now, and kind of the creative freedom that I have here on the show to just take it where the conversation leads us.
Very good. So you have how many times a week do you do your show? Is it like a
It's a weekly show that I do
it's a
with the
weekly
podcast,
show?
but it depends because sometimes I can't do it one week, so I'll double up or sometimes triple up in a week.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah, no,
but
you
I've
got
been
to
I've
do.
been branching out and doing some solo shows too, so I can get a little bit more in that way too, where I can just share my thoughts and things and my opinions, and I think
And
they're doing okay.
what's your platform, Dennis? Are you on like YouTube, Rumble?
Well, this platform is the Future Forecast platform.
Okay, this is strictly
My
for guys.
yes, my other platform, that's my own private site. I do that. I do a monthly show. I used to do a weekly podcast. But now I've just committed. I do once a month, I do a podcast and that's where I leave it for
And
my
is
own.
your podcast, where's that? Is on one of the apps on your phone or something? Or
Yeah, my podcast you can get on Spotify. You can get it's the Seeker podcast. You can get that on Spotify on all the sites, Apple Music.
awesome.
I
So
can't
it's
remember
called The
them all.
Secret Podcast?
The Seeker,
Oh,
Seiker.
Seeker. All
Yeah.
right. Hey, I got to check it
Actually,
out.
yeah, I'll send you one. Not trying to promote my brand on here, but there's one I just did, and maybe it's a conversation we can have here, where I pulled some information from things that Elon Musk was saying. Actually, in our private chat, our friend sent us a conversation that Elon Musk had at West Point. He was talking about where AI is going, how it's linked to the
Nice.
satellites, how it's controlling war, like things in war and AI. And then I pulled some stuff from James Giordano, who's a neuroscientist,
Yeah.
neurobiologist out of have I talked to you about him?
Yeah.
And
I
really,
yeah.
yeah, he's a
Very
fascinating
interesting.
guy.
Fascinating.
And so you got these two credible guys, two intelligent guys, and they're basically talking about the future of technology, taking nanotech, the tiny particulates that can already read and write into the brain. And then I went down a rabbit hole and pulled in Edward Reardon's Q data.
Yes.
Um, but you see how it marries up, and I got to be careful. I never want to speak for Edward, but when you listen to my conversation with him and what his
Yeah.
data was saying, and now the things that are coming online, I mean, it's incredible
You
where
know,
we could
it's
possibly be
it's
going.
mind blowing what we're going through, what's happening. So I guess you'll know it by the time this gets out. I attached a target to the guys that they did, and I also was the guest that night, and it was funny because we joked. Dick calls me. He goes, "Are you doing the show tonight?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm doing it." He goes, "Did you get the
Yeah.
link?" I said, "Yeah, I think so." He said, "Did you see what it was?" And I go, "I don't think so." He goes, "Well, man, you need to find out what the target is if you're going to host it." Well, but I did the target, and they didn't know
Yeah,
that.
he didn't know that you were the tasker. Oh,
So of
that's
course, when
great.
we're on there, he goes, "You son of a bitch! You told me you didn't know." But it was fascinating. It was the target was gold,
Oh,
and
wow.
very interesting, and it was tough to do the tasking because
Yeah.
I was looking at gold not as gold, but gold as a particulate of the new financial system, and is it
Hmm.
going to play a part or not? And
Right.
it was tough to do it because otherwise you'd look at gold as gold, or you look at gold in the futures market and see the charts. That's not what we're looking for. So anyway, we
Right.
got it, and even though the tasking didn't look that strong when you read it, I even think even Edward said, he says, "What's the thing here?" And it's incredible. They nailed it. I mean, they talked about
Yeah.
becoming part of a new bond system, treasury
Mm.
bonds that the U.S. is planning.
Yeah.
So if it works out, I mean, it sounds perfect to me. I thought, wow, that's excellent of what they're talking about. Instead of
Yeah.
doing anything with the dollar, they're talking about maybe dismantling the bond market and creating a new bond. And in Trump style or Trump fashion, it's like, well, if you want some of our new bonds, give us two of your old ones, and we'll give you a new one.
Right. Right.
And if you want out and you want cash, we'll give you 20 cents on the dollar. And I could visualize them. It just sounds so much like Trump, right? So I don't
Yeah.
know if that's going to come to fruition, but it sounds like that's definitely sounds like a very logical approach to to what they're going to do with cryptos, gold, and
Hmm.
include maybe some commodities like energies or something like that as a basket to back the new bond. Fascinating.
And does that sound like financially, from your standpoint, something that
Oh
would be
yeah,
beneficial
definitely.
to us?
Yeah, because you see, here's the thing with the treasury bonds, they're antiquated. They're so old. They're not only
Hmm.
old, it's a mountain of debt, like the biggest mountain you've ever seen in your life,
Hmm.
and it's pure debt. And then they places like China, the last numbers I've seen, like $400 billion, and the US is paying interest on those, of course, and that's their assets. And of course, banks hold it as an asset, but it's not an asset, it's a debt. It's the US
Right.
government debt, and they got to pay interest on it. So if he decides, look, it's a hard pill to swallow, but here's the deal. We're at the end of the cycle. It's going to collapse if we don't do something with it. People
Hmm.
can't afford to live. The cost of everything is going through the roof. They can't afford to pay the interest on the debt. So the ideal thing would be for someone to come along and create a new bond, but nobody would accept that. Who would ever want to say, like, are you
Right.
crazy? We've already been
Right.
through this. But no, the difference is they took us off the gold standard back in 71, and
Hmm.
that mountain of debt, which is basically the dollar, US dollar, is backed by nothing. It's backed by the
Yeah.
goodwill and faith of whoever the hell's in office at the time. So it's like me asking you for a loan, a significant loan. Would you not want some kind of collateral to back it up or
Right.
something?
Right. There's no collateral anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but the concept, we've always thought it would be that way. So instead of just actually going on a digital ledger technology bond, a lot of people aren't going to buy into that. They go, nah, hocus pocus. A lot of people don't believe in crypto or digital ledger. But then you've
Right.
got the gold bugs. And ironically, the week after I tasked the target, literally a week later, they came out and said they're going to audit the Fort
Fort
Knox.
Knox, right? Yeah.
What
Yeah.
a coincidence. Why?
Yeah.
And people are saying, oh, there's no gold in there. Well, I believe there's gold in there, but I believe it's probably maybe not as much as they're saying.
Yeah.
The gold in Fort Knox is still valued at 1930s rates. It's like $42 an ounce. So a couple of things we could see happening here. One is, I think if they go down that route, they could say, okay, on the chain, they will tokenize these new bonds and say it's backed
Hmm.
by gold, which will be tokenized on the bond, like the old thing, turn it in and you get your gold if you want to, possibly silver, possibly um, Bitcoin
Hmm.
or a good cryptocurrencies that they believe people would accept. Uh,
Right.
they mentioned this week, though, they mentioned that they're talking about doing something. They're announcing more about it Friday with, you probably saw it, did you? XRP, Solana,
Hmm.
and they're doing something with it. So I think that's the remnants of what they're planning on doing and creating a brand new bond that's going to be backed by several different things that most people will be happy with it. So it's exciting, but I think the idea of
Yeah.
the audit of the Fed is to make sure, or Fort Knox is to make sure that the gold is actually there, that they can use it and prove to people that they have something to back this new bond. And the idea, one of the guys, I think it might have been Edward, somebody got in their session, or maybe Dick, 20 cents on the dollar. I said, yeah, that sounds about right. Because what they
Yeah,
would probably do is when they get rid of the debt or write it off or go bankrupt with it, they'll just say, look, we'll give you 20 cents to the dollar, take it or leave it. Guess what are they going to do? Leave it? But the
right,
other concept I got was that they're 2 to 1. Somebody kept saying, I think it was Daz, like 2 to 1. And that makes sense because let's say you don't want out of the bonds. You decide, okay, I want to stay in. Then your deal
right.
is you're going to still take a haircut, only it's going to be
Hmm.
50% instead of 80%.
Yeah. Yes,
Interesting.
which is much better. It's a much better
Yeah.
than that
So
80%.
anyway, it was an interesting session. We'll wait and see, but I'm smiling because all these little pieces of the puzzle all seem to be coming together in
I was
so
just
many.
gonna I was going to lead with that actually. Just as my introduction, like I was going to say, like years ago, I got this phone call from a mysterious voice. That was me all creepy when I started the show tonight, and saying like I was told of all these changes that are coming, and like we're watching them unfold right now. And then we go back and look at data that the team has brought back over the years, and we're starting
Ooh,
to see things
phenomenal. Yeah.
fit in and fall together, and it's
Yeah.
just amazing to watch it all come together.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's fascinating. There's no doubt about it. We've
Now
taken
they're
an amazing
They're
session.
pulling gold from the UK and Europe. Did I hear something about that? Gold's coming in
Well,
from
I
overseas.
don't think they're pulling it from there. This is my 2 cents worth. Again, like I said, I'm not in the know, but I have my moments and I have my thoughts and the way in my mind that things should work. And I kind of go down that path and look for the little pieces to put it together. I think the idea of the tariffs might have spooked
Hmm.
some of the positions in gold in Europe because if there's gold
Right.
owed here somehow or whatever, if they start using like a VAT tax and they start putting tariffs on Europe or something, there may be a situation where it might interfere with the price of gold, or if somebody owes gold or something they meant to pay tax on. I don't know, but there could
Hmm.
be something there other than the fact that the US is actually buying it. I don't think they're buying it yet.
Right.
I can't see Europe being that friendly to sell them gold.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know. As I'm saying, you just get little pieces of the puzzle, and 9 out of 10 pieces aren't the ones that fit in the hole. So you got to find the
Right.
right piece.
Got to find the right one.
Right.
And there's so much trying to weed through information.
Ooh,
It's
yeah.
just so complicated. And I look at and I don't like to take a political stance either way. I'm just going to talk on the observables here. But like I look
Yep.
at what Trump says and what he's doing, and I feel that like the man's a chess player. Like what he says and does is, I feel like he's looking 2, 3 moves ahead, trying to
Yes.
anticipate
Yes.
what
Yep.
other people are going to do.
Yep.
So I don't always take it at face value, like, oh, he said this and he did this,
Yep.
good or bad.
Yep.
His plan is how they're going to react and what he's going to get out of it. It's not
That's right.
necessarily,
That's
you
right.
know,
What he says causes the reaction, problem,
right,
reaction, solution.
right.
A lot of people don't get that. I find it
Yeah,
fascinating. Like I am apolitical. I keep saying that over and over. I've
same.
never voted in my life ever. And
Hmm.
my reason is quite simple. I mean, I was a car salesman when we got out of high school, and we had a bad reputation, like just because we're scam artists, a car salesman. um, I believe politicians with power are basically in the same category. Lawyers, politicians with power, they're
Hmm.
all in that same bag, like you don't believe a damn word they say and they're out for themselves. And it's a
Right.
corrupt organization. And I
It's
think
yeah,
it's all coming to the light. We're starting a new system, then we got to keep it clean and clean the floors before the
right.
new system gets put in place.
And in reflecting on things that have been coming out with, through future forecasting that we've talked about, and revisiting that old conversation I had with Edward, and looking at some of this technology stuff we started talking about.
Mhm.
I think it was Edward that suggested. He says, maybe at some point we're going to get so fed up with our leadership, which we are because humans are imperfect beings. We make these
Mhm.
flawed decisions. And
Yes.
somebody's going to say, hey, this AI knows your whole history. It knows
Mhm.
everything and every decision humanity has ever made, and it can govern you better. So here's your new ruler. Here's your new decision maker.
The new
I'm
ruler.
not saying we're going to be there in the
No.
next year or two, but I
Yeah.
think we're starting to see these platforms and these AIs and this
Yeah.
technology that's going to roll out. And it's going to be more efficient. It's going to be a lot quicker for people to get things processed and a lot more probably I'll say fair in air quotes because right now what are they doing? They're pointing out how inefficient these systems are. It's
Yes.
frustrating a lot of people,
Yeah.
and they're going to say, "Here's the solution now," which
Yeah.
is blockchain, technology, AI, automation, all of that stuff that's going to roll in, and digital identity that's going to come online that we've been talking about as well. And I think it's the perfect setup to bring that system in that we've been talking
It
about.
definitely is. A couple of things I want to say. Well, first of all, on that note, I'm sure you've heard of Ray Kurzweil, right?
Oh yeah, the futurist. Yep, I've talked about him a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's fascinating. Like when you look at his
Hmm.
story. Going back to what you're saying about AI, the only issue I have with it right now is regardless of what's AI or not, it's man-made. And the problem
Right.
we have is right now it's either left or right leaning.
Hmm.
And that's a major problem. It's almost like
It
the
is.
blockchain itself using an oracle to get dependable information onto the chain. Because if you get
Right.
bad information on there, it's only as good as the information. So
Right.
how do they get to the point where the information is 100% reliable? There's the big crux. Who's going to give up
Yes.
that power and who's going to make that decision? But I
Yeah.
agree, going forward, it's going to make life so much better in so many ways for so many people. I mean, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but I keep using the analogy. I remember back seeing movies back in the day, the old West, when they had the towns with the muddy streets and the guys
Hmm.
on the horses, and they had these old 1929 cars beeping and honking,
Right.
scaring horses, and people were so pissed off with this
Right.
stupid
Right.
car because it was a new invention, and they didn't want them. I mean, they were loud, smoky, made a lot of noise, and fast, run over people. But look at today, where we are. I mean,
The
who would?
horse went out quick. It
Yes,
didn't take
very quick.
long.
So the thing is, we get settled away as humans, and we do accept all of these advances we get very,
Right.
very independently. I mean, we
Right.
accept it. They're not forced on us. And it's just like me. I mean, as much as I hate digital ID or anything like that, this phone, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't like cash. I don't carry cash, mostly
Hmm.
because Canadian cash is new. They got this new slick, 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 almost like plastic. And
Hmm.
Dennis, if I put a $20 bill in my pocket, I'll guarantee you that I put my hand in, that $20 bill goes out and it's
It's
gone.
coming out.
It ju-
Yeah.
and it's just cumbersome and awkward change in that. Like this is so easy. So I can see
Yeah.
how people get lured into it. That's the only problem, right?
Well, I've said for a long time, long before I've even on this platform, it's not going to be some government that steps in and crams it down your throat. It's going to be the consumer driven for
Yes.
convenience,
Problem,
which
reaction,
is
solution. Yep. Yep.
that's the design behind it.
That's
But
it.
it's harder and harder to use cash, and it's going to be more convenient for these new systems. And there's definitely its drawbacks, and we can definitely go down that rabbit hole of the total control and everyone has
Yep.
access to all your
Yep.
information.
Yep. Yep.
But
That's a whole
I
different thing.
think what's hard for us is that it's a transition, and we remember the old way. We recognize the benefits. We also recognize what we're giving up with it. But
Yes.
10, 15 years from now, the next generation, they're not going to
Mhm.
know any better. And
No,
I think they're going to be a lot more efficient at things. I
I
do think,
agree. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I agree.
that's fine.
Once we get through this bad stage that we're going through, it's almost like you're having your house completely renovated. Like there's
Yeah,
some very inconvenient when the bathroom doesn't work, the doors or no windows in them or whatever, right? Um,
right.
once you get through it, I think it'll be acceptable because I think it might, like in the past, they've always used, in my opinion, they've used religion to keep
Hmm.
people in line. I mean, I
Right.
think now we're off on a complete different tangent, but
That's
they
fine.
actually did. I think my belief is that when you went to school, you were schooled by the people that run the country to behave and
Right.
to learn what they want you to learn. That's why we were never taught things that we should have been taught. We
I
were never
agree.
taught things. Like I remember going to school and there was a guidance teacher and she goes, "Well, what do you want to do? You can be a mechanic or you can be a woodworker." And I go like, "That's it." But we didn't know what was out there. So
Right.
with okay, I just lost my thought. There it went. Poof.
Talk- we were talking about how the future generation is going to step right into this new system and
Oh,
it's going to be
yeah.
smooth
So
eventually.
so the idea with religion is you sin, you burn forever in hell. True?
Right.
Right.
Hmm.
And then a lot of people bought it, a lot of people didn't. But the idea was that there's punishment. Everything you do that's wrong, you're
Right.
being punished.
Right.
And with the new system, there's none of that. It's just like, oh, I see somebody just took $200 new dollars off my phone. Oh, I went through a red light. Really? How do
Yeah.
you know? Well, my car told on me.
Well, I think, I think the new system in ways does mirror religion in terms of that we had before we had this omnipotent God or the omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent, right? All knowing, all powerful, all good. This God who knew everything that we did, even our thoughts. And now you're going to have this AI, you bring in a social credit system. Everything you do is known by the technology, right? So you're still going to be it's still social engineering, really a highly efficient social engineering thing. If you look at these countries like China that are doing it, it's like I can't even jaywalk, and now it's going to affect my ability
Right.
to engage in the economy. And
Yeah.
that's just that. I mean, that's one heck of a way to, especially you have a family with a couple of kids, they're going to really stay in line because they don't want to
Yeah.
jeopardize being
No,
able to provide for
exactly.
their family. It's a huge
Yeah.
motivator, you
It
know?
just it covers pretty much everything that you can think of. Like you said, there's no such thing.
Yeah.
Even jails. I mean, if you have a system that takes away your credit score, or takes away your credit,
Hmm.
takes away the only form of financial incentive that you have that you can't even eat, you don't need to be locked up anywhere. You can be roaming the
Hmm.
streets, starving to death.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, I mean, it's just incredible how much control it can have. But like I said, I'm sure, we balk at most changes. I think even me, when I get my phone, I get an update. I go, oh, really? Not again? Because I just
Same.
hate change. All as you
Yeah.
get older, I think that becomes a big issue. Like when
It
everything
does. But I
changes.
think you and I have talked a lot about being, ADHD neurodivergent. And I think one of the traits, one of the benefits of us is our ability to process large amounts of information and to poke holes in things and to bring change to things, right? I don't like this. This isn't a fit. Like we're the kids in class who the teachers, we drive them crazy because we're always like,
Yeah,
that's not true. Or look at it this way, finding different ways to look at things. So change is also very hard for us if it's change that we're not thinking of and controlling because it's someone else telling us to do something that we're not used to doing.
yeah.
So I think we feel that burn a lot more and also find ways to poke holes in a system as it's being rolled out.
Yeah, it does. Like when we're born, I think this is where you get all the strife and all the pushback and all of the turmoil in the world also, because when you're born, you're basically programmed.
Mhm.
If I was born into a Jewish family or say a Catholic family, which is more practical because I was,
Mhm.
I'm taught the belief system of that church and their
Mhm.
belief system overall. And if
Right.
I met a friend when I was 13 years old and I'm a faithful Catholic boy, and I look at him and say, "What's that silly hat you got on your head?" And the yarmulke,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Well, he believes what he was taught because
Right.
he was taught that. I believe what I was taught. Neither one of us are wrong, but the idea
Right.
is for me to tell you that everything your parents told you growing up was all lies.
Right.
That's devastating. How do you stand there and say every fiber of my body as a human being is not what I thought it was?
Right. And
Right?
that's, what, and that, Marty, I think is where a lot of us, probably a lot of people listening here, we've gone through that dark night of the soul. And it's that moment when you stand up and you go, I don't think what I was taught was the real
Right.
situation here. And then that's traumatic. I
It
mean,
is
it's like the
dramatic.
rug gets
Yeah.
pulled out from under you because you're
Yeah.
like, if this isn't true,
Yeah.
then what is true? And then you just start to tumble down now
Yeah.
the YouTube rabbit hole of all the weird
Yes.
stuff that's out there. And and then you're at first, like for me at first I was grasping, I need another dogma. I need another structure to tell me how to process the world. And eventually you kind of find your own way.
Yeah.
But that's a very hard thing. You're absolutely right.
It is. It totally is. And how it resonated with me is my dad died when I was 10 years old. And when I was 16 years old, my brother was quite a well-known, famous Canadian recording artist. And he broke out in when I was 16 years old, and I was at the club one night, and they opened this club. He was very successful. He had gold records and his own TV show and so on and so forth. But we're at the club one night, and I'm upstairs, and I'm a giddy young kid, 16, 17 years old. And his name was Harry, and this guy come upstairs, and he's with us. He's sitting in the private office. There's usually a party, but that weekend there was no after party, so we're sitting and talking. And he says, "So did you tell Marty about the secret yet?" And I'm looking at him laughing like I've got ADHD, and I'm looking around,
Right.
and 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 he didn't answer. And I go, "What secret? What secret?" And he just ignored us. And he says, "Come on, Harry, tell him." And I looked at Harry, and he dropped his head. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, what's this all about? So basically, the guy told me when I was 17, I think. He said, "Oh, that your mother is not really your mother."
Really?
Yeah, so we're talking about just now about change and shock and accepting things, and about how
Yeah.
if you're raised in a Catholic home to find out things that they're not real, it's
Right.
devastating. And so that's the same similarity thing I had. Like I had to all of a sudden, just overnight, just instantly realize that, hey, that's not my mother.
That's a shock to the system, especially
Yes.
be told like that.
Yeah, that's how I found out in a nightclub, 16 years old.
Oh my gosh. That's a rough age to hear
Yeah.
that
But you know
too.
what? I was very fortunate. I had the most beautiful, loving, caring, large family of
Hmm.
13, including me, to
Yeah.
raise me. And there was never, ever anything mentioned. And that's why it was to protect me, I think, because my dad
Right.
died. He was planning on telling me when I was 12, and he died when I was 8.
Yeah.
But anyway, the
Yeah.
point I
That's
was
tough.
getting at was the same idea about change.
Hmm.
And this is why in the world, I think we're having so much strife with people. Like, you can't challenge me because that degrades me. That means I'm not real. That means I'm a lie.
Hmm.
That means I'm not what I think I am. And that
Right.
that goes right at the core of what you are.
Hmm.
It's devastating,
Right.
right?
Right. And I
Yeah,
mean, that's where cognitive dissonance comes in, because it's too hard to process
it
the
is.
truth that you're being presented with. You have to hold on. And some people are happy there. And I always say, like, if that serves them, great. That's why I'm not a fan of, like, we got to wake people up. Some people, that's trauma,
Yeah,
man. Like,
that's
if they're not
trauma.
ready for it, if they're not
Yeah,
seeking it out, you're
yeah,
going to really mess somebody up with that stuff.
yeah. And I totally agree. Now, like I'm in this crap, as you know, full time, like you are.
Hmm.
And I'm very observant of it. I'm a very opinionated person. But the point is, I have a family that's not. So I'm really
Hmm.
cautious not to even engage because it's devastating for somebody
Yeah.
that you tell them and you shock their belief system. And you get a
Right.
charge out of it saying, hey, I know this, but they don't get a charge out of it. And it's damaging. It can be,
Yeah.
especially
And
today.
it's hurtful both ways, because you're
Yeah,
like, hey, this is important to me and I want to talk about it. And they're like, nope, that's you're crazy conspiracy theorist.
yeah, yeah,
It just doesn't go well with people.
yeah.
I have people in my family who aren't receptive as well. And it's just I've stopped trying to have those conversations
You
because we
can't.
both end up feeling hurt. It's not
Yeah,
worth it.
exactly. There's no point. And it's just to prove a
Yeah.
point that you're right. While
Right.
we're talking about that, do you want to segue into something a little bit different? Maybe what's
Yes.
going on in Canada with the trade wars?
Marty, we are in sync because I was waiting for a window to say, "Hey, I just saw a headline today where they're flat out saying trade war," and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. And
Okay.
yeah,
I'm
your
gonna
insights. So
we'll go deep here, deep in the sense
let's
that
do it.
meaning let's expand it. So let's start at the beginning.
Hmm.
My belief, again, my belief
Hmm.
is that this is all pre-planned many, many years ago. And an example would be the Economist magazine. If you go back and look at the 1988 magazine, you saw that, I believe. Did you, Edward? Or sorry, Edward. Dennis? Have you ever seen it?
No, no.
Okay. So what it is, let me just pull it up real quickly while I'm talking to you. So what it is, basically, it's everybody knows what the Economist is,
Right.
CONOMIST, 1988 cover. Okay. So here we go here. So what we have here is the 1988 cover of the Economist magazine right here. How many of you can see it okay when it comes up? There it is. You see it?
Oh wow. Yeah.
So 1988 January, get ready for a world currency. Now get this. This is 30 years ago.
Oh
98,
geez.
88, oh 08. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, 40 years ago. Look
Hmm.
at this. You see what this is down here?
Is that the Phoenix? I'm trying to let me zoom in here a little bit.
Phoenix rising from the ashes. The dollars
Yep.
are being burnt. The
Yep.
Phoenix rising, and it's got this nice token around its
Uh-huh.
neck, and it actually looks like what's it called? Not XRP, the other one, XLM. It looks a bit like XLM. See it?
Yeah.
And you see right here, 2018.
Oh geez.
So see, this stuff, in my opinion, is
They've known.
again, like I firmly believe there's many, many levels
There are.
of leadership in the world, and I believe the
Hmm.
low-hanging fruit are the ones that I told you that I don't have any use for, which are
Right.
basically the
The ones
court
we see.
jesters that are friends of
Hmm.
friends that have money, that are crooked, they're corrupt, they're the car salesman people.
Right.
But there are people much, much higher, and we won't get into that. I'm sure Michael would be interested in it, whether it's from the Nephilim or whatever, but almost spirit creatures or the Vatican or
Right.
whatever it is that drop the rules from the top down. So we're at a point where the system that we're in has failed. It's done. It cannot go any further because nobody can afford to live. People, I mean,
Right.
you have two people working in the house just to try and buy a house that they can't afford. So
Hmm.
anyway, the whole idea is we're going through this transition, and I believe a lot of these politicians have a job to do, and I think at the end of the day, it's like a boxer, two professional boxers or hockey teams. They go out and have a beer together. They're buddies
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're basically playing in the same game. And you see it
Hmm.
all the time. I mean, I saw the other day Trump goofing off with, well, you saw the one with him and Obama
Yeah.
at you saw that one, right? What's her name came
I,
in, Hillary, they were all there and he's joking around with Obama.
I believe it.
Yeah, I mean so it's just it's a game. So Trump's purpose is, I believe, to oversee
Hmm.
the bankruptcy, of course. And Michael,
Right.
he's the one that put that seed there.
Yeah. I remember
Makes
that.
perfect
Yep.
sense
It
because
does. And that's what we're watching happen with this
that's what
audit
we're
that's
watching
going
happen.
on right now.
Now, my take on
Yeah.
what's going on, because I haven't talked to him for months now, but the idea is it looks like one of his jobs is to secure what we call America, but more so than America. So you've got the USA, and then north of that, you got us, the Canadians,
Hmm.
and with a land mass 150% bigger than the USA and a population of 1/10 of the USA, less than 40
Hmm.
million, and they all live within 100 miles of the border, 5,000-mile border. So how do you go about securing a place like that?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why they looked at possibly Greenland up above there, because north of there, you go over the pole, you're into Russia.
Yeah.
On our starboard side, um, you've got, if you're facing north, you've got the Atlantic Ocean.
Hmm.
Port side, you've got the Pacific Ocean. You got Canada north, and then you got the Arctic Ocean, the sea up there. And then now he's talking about, ironically, the Panama Canal, which is the dividing
Right.
line on the south part. And you encompass that piece of land. It's a nice, neat package, America. Because,
Hmm.
I mean, most people out here are US, but they take it for granted. Like, that's America, this is Canada. No, guys, it's all
Hmm.
America. It's just we call you
Right.
Americans, but we call us Canadians. But
Right.
it's the same thing. We're Americans as well. There's North America, South America,
That's
Central America.
correct.
So
Right.
my guess is that that was his job, and he's planning on doing it. And I'll tell you what, like Trump or dislike Trump, it doesn't matter. As a person, I think he's a bit of an asshole,
Yeah.
an arrogant, what's the word, egotist, but
Yeah.
and all of that shit. He's got a job to do, and by God, I wish I had him in our corner as a person to get shit done. Right?
Yeah.
Now, getting back
Yeah.
to that Economist magazine, that said 2018, but you remember his term was interrupted.
Yeah.
So I believe they were on schedule. And what happened is he was interrupted in 2020. And I think when he came back this time, like he had his notepad ready to
Oh,
go.
he had it
And
ready to
from day
go.
one, he's like,
Hmm.
we're behind schedule. And
Right.
he's tearing down the house. Now the
Well, I
problem,
remember. I'm
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead. Go on. Just a
No,
quick comment on that. I remember when COVID first kicked off, they
mhm,
proposed a bill for the national digital currency and digital ID. It was in there, and
yeah,
I remember going, "This is it. We've been
yeah,
talking about this.
yeah,
Here it comes."
yeah,
And it got kicked down at the last minute. But the fact that they had that ready to go as soon as COVID was, but
yeah.
I don't think we
It's
had the
all,
infrastructure yet. We
That's why
weren't
I
ready
say
for it.
it's all pre-planned. And I
Yes.
personally believe, I mean, it's just my belief, guys. Like, don't take this at heart. I'm just here babbling. Some people like it, some don't. But I believe we're way past the point of no return. I think there is going to be a war. I don't think there's any way out of it now. I mean, I don't
Mhm.
want a war, definitely. I got family, a young family. I don't
Right.
want to leave my home in Canada, but I also don't want to be locked down like a communist country. So it's not good times for anybody, but you can't really focus on it. You just got to try to move through and figure out the best thing that you can do. And I find by being in this space, it's like talking to a prepper. you can kind
Hmm.
of prepare yourself that if somebody's going to throw a rock at your head, at least I can see it coming and try and duck.
Right.
Because my wife doesn't want to know about it. My children don't want to know anything about it. They won't don't want to talk, and that's perfectly okay. But me, I'm a bit of a different creature, and some people like hockey. I like
Right.
chess. It's a bit of
Right.
so anyway, getting back to what we're talking about. So when Trump comes over, I can look at him and I can tell personally what he's all about. So he'll throw barbs. He'll throw something like, everybody's getting tariffs. Okay, fine, whatever.
Right.
Right? But being a car salesman, when someone comes in and wants to buy my car off the lot, and I was a car salesman, it's the first job I had out of high school. And I did it for about a year or two. And then I decided, hey, I can do this on my own better. But the point is, he comes along, you want to sell your car. If I want to buy it, you tell me your bottom line right away, Dennis?
No,
No, you
not at
don't.
all. I'm gonna come in
So
high.
what he's saying is, hey guys, 25%, 25%. Let's sit down and talk. Because why? Legitimately, now we're talking about a lot of Canadians don't want to accept this. They think it's a personal attack on their being. And I don't
Right.
see it that way. What it is look, guys, we got to get our shit together here. And there are problems. That border is a problem. Personally, I believe Canada was infiltrated 10 years ago or more by China. I
Same.
think
Yep.
it's basically right now close to a narc state as you could ever get. And
Hmm.
see, people will get offended when I say this, especially if they're listening, Canadians, but stop being offended. Go check it out for yourself. Go find out the true numbers. Don't just, oh, I'm offended, because it's not all bullshit. One thing I'm finding about free speech, Dennis, is that unfortunately it gives every idiot, everyone, a voice. And the problem I'm
Hmm.
finding is I'll go on, say YouTube or Rumble, and I'm looking for something like tonight, for example.
Hmm.
Uh, right now, Trump is talking. I'll see 20 channels on there live right now. And you click on the channel and it's from 4 weeks ago.
Right.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
and everything is dramatic, like, oh my God, look, and it's all clickbait. So
Yes.
unfortunately, we've got to sift through all of this shit, excuse my French, to
It's
get
true.
through something that resembles the truth,
The
right?
truth. It's very hard.
So with Canada, my only real problem I've got is that, look, all Trump said is we need to talk about the fentanyl, which, from what I've seen from many other experts, just as good as those experts, is a serious problem and it kills people. So
Hmm.
Canadians, if they saw this themselves, they go, oh my God, that's so bad. That's not good. Let's fix it. But what
Right.
they do is they deflect it right away, and all of a sudden, Trump is coming after Canada, threatening to take our sovereignty away. Wait a minute. Okay, relax. He wants to talk about this and see if it's an issue. And like everything else, you barter back and forth and you say, okay, we're going to spend money on our border and we're going to try and secure it. That's all he wants, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But now
Yeah. I'm with you. Go ahead.
I do believe that what he's saying is real and nothing to do with Trump, because Trump doesn't make these decisions, in my opinion.
Mhm.
We are going to be not a 51st state, but I do believe we are going to be part of the USA, part of Canada, maybe part not. And the reason I say that is there's just too much land out there for too few people. 94% of all of Canada is still owned by the crown and it's uninhabitable.
Wow.
So it doesn't make any sense. It's the same land mass. And if they don't need borders anymore, because most people look at borders as something to keep the bad guys out,
Right.
when in fact it's something to keep you in. It's a
Somebody said that.
corral, huh?
Somebody said that years ago. Like Trump was proposing to build the wall, and they said, just be careful of that. It's not to keep people out, that it might keep you in one day. And
That's
that was a
right.
very scary thought to think
Well,
about.
it is, because we stop and think about it, Dennis. Every little town in America and in Canada has a post office, an
Hmm.
MTO or motor vehicle licensed vehicle office, a place to get married, place to pay your taxes. Think of
Right.
the redundancy of every single town in every
Hmm.
country. Hundreds and thousands of these stupid little kiosks or towns. With AI, you don't need any of that.
It's all going away with the
It's all
blockchain.
gone.
Yeah.
So, and you don't need those imaginary lines in the sand, because why?
No.
They got your digital ID. They know
They know where
exactly
you
where
are.
you are. They know where
They're
you are.
reading everything you're doing. Yes.
So there's where the big change I think is coming. So anyway, getting back to the Trump deal, I got to get to the point because I'm just frustrated because Canada's taken this as a personal vendetta. Now, Trudeau, who I personally think is the lowest form of life that was ever created, is on his way out, but he's made a comment on his way out that basically in one of his little speeches I just saw, he's got nothing to lose. So he's burning
Mhm.
down the house as he goes out. He's talking about,
Right.
well, first of all, he sent another 5 billion to the Ukraine,
Hmm.
right or wrong. He prorogued parliament, which means he shut down our government. Right now, we don't have government. The what's it called? Parliament is gone. It's shut down. So no
Yep.
decisions are
Jeez.
be allowed to be made right now, but he's making decisions. He's doing what he
That's
wants.
scary.
He's selling, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But I don't know how they've done it. I talked to a military friend of mine. He says, no, what they've done is it's not exactly the British parliamentary system. It's tweaked somewhat. So this guy basically does whatever the hell he wants. So
Hmm.
that's him. And again, he's just not a nice guy. He's been in there for 10 years, okay? And
Hmm.
people look at Canada today and it's basically falling apart in the sense that you can't afford to eat, you can't afford to live, you can't afford to own a home. People are taxed to death. There's like 20, 30 different taxes and the carbon tax is just unbelievable. And they just keep raising
Jeez.
it. So all of that, you look at that guy and if someone said to me, why is Canada so bad? Okay, here's the answer. It's not because of some guy that just took office 4 weeks ago. It's the
Right.
idiot that's in power for the past 10 years. So take
Right.
it the way you want to, but that is the problem. There's the problem, not the guy that just happened to pop into office and you don't like his personality.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he came in like I agree. This is a bigger problem. This is a longer term plan that's been going on. And what we're seeing right now, which I've been screaming out for a very long time, is the moves that other leaders have made to put us into this position. Specifically, I think really they may have believed they were going on this one track, but I think the higher orchestrating hand that had
Hmm.
the wider perspective knew that they were going to make these people the fall guys so they can look at it. So then we, as the citizens, the cattle, would say, "Yep, the system's failing. We need something better." Ultimately, and I look at like when I was in the army, I worked in counter intel, and one of the things we did was called subversion and espionage directed against the army. It's called SAIDA. We'd give trainings on it and tell soldiers what to look out and stuff. So for years, I've been seeing subversive media, really, anti-government stuff. Not that I don't think we should be addressing problems in the government, but things have been said and created and generated in ways where it's turning our citizenry against one another, against the government, where now nothing is getting done. Everybody's just
Yeah,
fighting and screaming about what's
yeah,
important to them, and some of that's as some of these tech documentaries have come out. I can't remember what they're called now, but the ones about Facebook, the ones about social media. And now what we're hearing with US aid fall right in
yeah,
lockstep with it, how they go in for regime change. That's absolutely what's been going on in this country,
exactly.
probably for at least 20 years.
Yeah,
For at
yeah, it
least
has
20
been.
years.
Yeah.
And now we're
And
primed, mad at each other, mad at our government. We don't trust anything. We don't trust the government. We don't trust the healthcare industry. Religion's falling apart. Every industry, as has been told to us through future forecasting for
mhm,
me the last 5 years,
yeah,
we're losing faith in everything. So then they can bring us this new
that's right. New
solution.
system on a platter when we start
Hmm.
crying for their help.
Yeah.
Um,
So I want to backtrack real quick. You mentioned, you think that we're going to war. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, a little bit. I believe without a doubt that things have escalated to the point now there's too many players in here. We've got the
Hmm.
situation with Iran over there in the Middle East with Hamas with Israel. You've got the Ukraine situation, which is no better than the day it started. And I mean, I'm not
Right.
a believer in it. And here's the problem. When you see it on TV here, you've got CBC, CNN, all these channels. They always throw this picture of it and I think it's very deceiving because people have to understand that these channels are owned by these left or right wing
Right.
organizations. I was
Hmm.
a newspaper publisher. I had my own newspaper for 3 years. I was a weekly
Right.
publisher when I was in my 20s. And Dennis, I'm telling you what, You could write what you want on that paper. They believed it. And it's sad to
Yeah.
say, it's just they paid your subscription, and whatever you said, they believe what you tell them. So if
Yeah.
someone is looking at a Fox News or a CNN or whatever, they're going to believe what they're told. They're going to say, well, why?
Yeah.
This person would never lie to me. It's almost like being
Right.
indoctrinated when you're growing up with your parents and you find out all these things that were wrong, and someone says, oh, no, that's not true. And you
Yeah.
say, well, my parents taught me this. Well, for
Right.
you to go against that's the same as we just said before,
Yeah.
where everything that all your values, someone's telling you they're all wrong. That's hard to take.
It's very hard.
The thing is with Canada, what I find, and I'm not being disrespectful, they're a big, big sports country. They're rabid with like say for example, it's hockey is the big thing, right? Mostly.
Hmm.
I know in the U.S. it's football and baseball, but the
Right.
biggest
We
one
got
here
hockey
in
too.
Canada.
We like hockey.
But
Yeah.
here's the deal: when you get a sports team and you are a supporter, you're a lifelong supporter. And I jokingly tell because I have a nephew and his wife, and it's funny. They dress up Saturday night. He puts on his Toronto Maple Leafs jersey. She puts on her Montreal Canadian. She's French, and they
Right.
sit there and they probably the jerseys cost 400 or 500 bucks, or they go to the game
Oh wow.
and they're rooting for their team. And at the end of the night, there's really no winner because if Toronto wins, the girl says, "Ah, yeah, because of this, 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 and this." But
Right.
there's no way she would ever say, "Okay, you're right. I'm going to put on a Toronto Maple Leaf jersey." It
Right.
just
Right.
doesn't work. So all I'm saying with Canada is open your mind and look at the other side before you make a determination because that's not happening. As soon
Yeah.
as Trudeau gets up there and starts bell-ragging on Trump, or Trump gets up there like an ass on TV or whatever he does, and he starts talking about the biggest, the most beautiful, the largest, like he does,
Right.
and
Right.
people get turned off, but they got to understand, you got to look past that, look for the truth. And the truth is, I believe that the plans going forward is that the whole thing will be a united country.
Hmm.
When I was born in a place called Newfoundland, and it's in most eastern part of Canada. And I was born in, well, I'm not going to tell you what year, but 3 years before I was born, that island, which is 600 miles wide and 600 miles high, was a part of the British Isles. It was not Canada.
Hmm.
So there was a guy there. His name was Joey Smallwood, and he made a deal with the devil. He made a deal that if he were to consent to join Confederation in Canada, that every child under the age of, I think, 16 would get $6 a month called a baby bonus. And I think that was
Hmm.
probably the main point of selling to get Newfoundland into Canada because we weren't part of Canada. So what I'm saying is by 2 or 3 years, I would have been a British subject versus a Canadian. So
Right.
in the big picture thing, things change. The world changes. I mean, a volcano wildling could be created tomorrow. It's not important. What's important is you're with your loved ones, you're with your family, you
Right.
love the place you live in. It doesn't matter. We want leaders, obviously, because if we didn't, we wouldn't vote for them and elect them.
Yeah.
So if we want leaders, then the idea is we have to go along with that whole plan about having leaders do what they do. And if they decide that we're going to change the boundaries here on this piece of land, it's not like we're that different. I mean, you and I can't tell
Hmm.
that you're from the US and you probably couldn't tell that I'm
No,
from Canada. Even the accents aren't really different.
not that different.
But
Yeah.
but I wish they weren't so brainwashed. I wish they would. But by opening your mind to a lot of this, it's hurting them in the sense that they got to start believing something different than they've been told.
Yeah, and that's the challenge, and that's where we see a lot of the resistance. And but I think that that also serves the agenda right now for people being so upset and so shocked because now it puts them in reaction mode. It puts them in a state where it's easier to drive the herd that way because they're just reacting and following where everybody else is going and kind of doing what
They
they're
are.
told.
And also, I think it has to work that way, Dennis, because as much as I'd like them to say, oh, let's get together and have a negotiation and fix things, that's not what it's intended to be. And I'll tell you
No,
why
not at
it's
all.
not. Because how do you break it? If you get along well and make an agreement, nothing's broken. So
Yeah.
the idea is that they have to break it. How are they going to break it, in my opinion, is by Trudeau doing what he's doing, that arrogant little ass, and saying, well, if you do that to us, we're going to hit you 10 times harder. Well, guess what? People have to
Yeah.
realize what a tariff is. They obviously don't know. So what happens is if we put tariffs on our products, we're
Hmm.
the ones that suffer. Why? Because our products become too expensive to import or export to the USA. US is not going to buy our products if we put
Yeah.
more tariffs on it. So they'll look elsewhere. So what does that do to us? It destroys our industry, which means
Hmm.
now, mind you, they'll say, okay, we'll find other places. But the problem is people say, oh, there's always China. And I stop and say, are you serious? Like that was a dirty word 10 years ago. But now
Right.
it seems like they don't mind cozying up with the Chinese Communist Party. And
Yeah.
it's no big deal.
Marty, what scares me, it's always stuck in my head. The team did one of their targets. I don't know if it was a death of the dollar session. I don't remember if it was Dick or Edward, and it was looking out at the future at the end of all of this transition. And one of them said the American people are so defeated that China just steps in and
Yeah.
there's zero resistance because we just need someone to I'm butchering how it was said, but basically we just need someone to come help us.
Yeah.
That's a terror, and I'm not trying to spread fear, but I remember that data point. And we looked at a lot of weird stuff, but like they just reviewed the North Carolina data that we did in 2019, and I was like,
Same
that's
thing.
creepy.
Yep.
What the heck? And then look what happened.
Yep.
6 years later,
Yep.
North Carolina got hit with pretty much the way they described it so many years ago.
Yep.
So
And yeah,
I don't know.
that's crazy. And Dick did Lahaina too. He drew Lahaina and was,
Yes, they
yeah.
did Lahaina. Daz did it too. Daz had this fire stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
they all had elements of it, but they weren't even looking at Lahaina.
No,
They were looking at, I think they were looking at Oahu, trying to get information really for Dick. How's Oahu going to be where Dick's
that's
at?
right. That's what it
And
was. How would Oahu fare out
yeah,
anything? And they ended up seeing Lahaina.
they pulled in all the Lahaina stuff because it was so luminous. Obviously, when we look at these luminous
So
events.
anyway, with regard to what we said, there's things I find are troubling. Number one, I think our economy's in rough shape right now.
Yeah.
Our dollar has dropped to 69 cents, which is a dollar 44, dollar 45 exchange rate.
Mm,
2011 was at par. It's unaffordable as it is. People are losing their homes. A lot of people are over their head. They're underwater. And on top of all of that, I mean, now we've got a guy that's supposed to be basically, from what I understand, I could be wrong here. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody that's out there, I'm sure they will. Uh, the new guy, Mark Carney, who used to be the governor of the Bank of Canada years ago, and he was hijacked by Britain. He became the Bank of England's governor general more recently. His name is Mark Carney. He's a politician. He's slick and he's a big weffer. He's a big part of the wef. And he was one of the original guys that he actually wrote a book about the carbon tax. And he's basically saying that our carbon tax was not high enough.
wow.
And he's the guy that's going to be possibly not elected, just put in power temporarily as the new prime
Right.
minister when Trudeau walks out. And then there probably will be an election in months to come.
Right.
I mean, it's disgusting when you look and see what they're doing. And the average person, he used to be an actor. Apparently, he was a drama school, what is it?
Huh.
Drama teacher, high school drama teacher, and he is an
Interesting.
amazing actor. And like you saw what happened in the summertime that year with the trucks.
Oh my
You ever
gosh, I
see
forgot
it?
about that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I did. I think I did a remote viewing project on that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he
remember that.
implemented the Emergency Measures Act, and people went to jail. People were just recently got out of jail, and that was like 4 years
Yeah.
ago. And then, of
Yeah.
course, on top of that, like they had their bank accounts frozen, and yeah, not a nice person. But the thing is, some people, anyway, let's get off that. So, generally speaking, we're hurting a bit here in Canada with regard to what's happening. But it would have been so much easier if they just said, "Hey, yeah, let's sit down and talk about this." Of course, we
Right.
will. And there was
Yeah, but
nothing
that's not going to
mentioned.
happen.
Fentanyl just left the scene completely. There was nothing to talk about there. It was just that, not that there was going to be, Trump was giving an ultimatum to have a talk. It was just like, he's doing this and that's it. That's not right. And we're going to stand up
Right.
like our, sports team and fight these guys.
Right. And cheer and cheer. But so Marty, how do we? how do we navigate this, right? This, because I look at it like there's things I can control, there's things I can't control. I can't control all these big changes to the economy, to borders, to
No.
war. Like what do we do? What would you recommend in terms of how
Well,
we navigate the next year
you
or
know
two?
what? I don't have much in the way of recommendations except the stuff that I myself believe that I want to do. Number one is to um, look for where you want to be if things get really ugly. Because let's face
Hmm.
it, I think personally, I don't want to be in a city.
Yeah.
I don't. Things are fine in a city. They got cafes and nice little places to eat and drink and movie theaters. But when things get ugly, the neighbors are too close. I mean,
Hmm.
that's me personally. So one thing I'm looking at is possibly this year because I sold my home 3 years ago. I'm looking at maybe doing something and moving to the country, so that
Yeah.
at least you got a little bit of privacy, a bit of freedom. That's one thing. And then also you got the possibility of being able to grow food. Not that I'm a
Hmm.
farmer, but little things like you can have chickens, you can, because I really
Yeah.
think what's going on is another part of the system that they're planning on attacking is going to be the food system and the delivery system. Like you've
Right.
heard stuff about that, right? We're talking about now, even the guys in their sessions about shipping lanes being shut down
Yeah.
and so on. And you know what's going to go underground if things get really bad food wise or shipping wise. The food system is going to go underground. You're going to get major firms buying it all, and you're not going to
Hmm.
get it. And then
Yeah.
the inflation is going to be rampant, especially if the dollar, if nothing happens, if they don't come to some kind of an agreement. So I mean, I would like to be able to be with my family, which means I won't leave this area. I don't like the winters here. But what do
Right.
you do? I mean, you can't live underneath their roof. You can't live in their basement. So I stock up. I've got a couple of deep freezes that I've had for 2 years. I had to recycle
Uh-huh.
it because I was a bit early and make sure that you've got lots of food because I really think going forward, like just 2, 3 months ago with our clients, we got some people in the coffee futures because it looked really good. And I said, looks like it's going to have a big run. And it has. Coffee has gone up in the retail end about 30% at least in the past, I'm going to say month and a half.
Wow.
So in
Yeah.
Canada, we get the 900 grams, which is 2 pounds can of McDonald's coffee. And it was 1995 or 1999 Canadian for this coffee can. Now it's $28. So that's a 30%
Jeez.
increase in, I'd
Yeah.
say in 2 months. Now,
That's
I
wow.
don't know
That's
how that,
amazing.
yeah, that's a bit more than the 3% they tell us we're getting, right? So
Yeah.
I see issues going forward with trying to get food. And right now, get yourself a freezer and fill it up with food. So at least that's
Yeah.
one thing that's not going to be stressing you out with regard to costs going up and not being able to afford it.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, try not to take on any extra debt that you can't afford. We see a lot of things going on in the system that scare me a bit. And one of them is the car prices. But again, I think the reason, oh, I know what's going on. Like right now in Canada, what's happening with our auto prices, they've doubled, I would say, in the past 3 years. It's
Yeah. It's
because
awful.
well, our dollar dropping so much, Dennis, what's happening is the Americans, or again, the US companies are coming across the border, getting a dollar
Hmm.
45 for their dollar. So it's a nice deal to buy the cars because it's the same cars. We have an assembly plants in Canada with American cars. So
Right.
would you rather buy a car in the US for 30,000 or come across and buy the same car in Canada for the same price and get 40% discount off it? Because
I wish I would have gone to Canada to buy my car because I'm in that situation.
well, you know,
My wife's
yeah.
car went at the peak of when the market was awful, and
Yeah,
now we're stuck with a
yeah.
like a $500 a month car payment. It's awful.
Well, you got to ask yourself too, like you know the agenda with what they're doing. You heard the
Hmm.
story. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. So
Right.
how does it make you own nothing? How can they make you not own a car? Well, easy. What they're doing is there's a
Yeah.
shortage of parts, a shortage of cars, and going forward, it's not going to get much better because if they restrict them or if there's shipping issues or whatever, people are not going to be able to afford to drive them. So they're going to
Hmm.
be forced to take a public transit or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of people yeah, and I can only imagine there's going to be a lot of people that are totally disagreeing with a lot of things I'm saying, but I'm not saying it's for everybody. there are people that will have 10 cars. They don't care, or they have the money and
Right.
the means. But I'm talking about the average person, hardworking
Right.
man that's got a family that can't just get up and leave. Like my situation at my age, though, I should be able to, is because I'm tied to nothing. I can leave where I am tomorrow. I rent a condo
Right.
and I can leave. I don't have a millstone around my neck. I don't have a massive mortgage. So if I don't like it here, I can leave. But like I have a nephew and he's not that much younger than me. He's maybe 10, 15 years younger. He's got a family that are probably late teens, early
Right.
20s, maybe no, maybe they're in their 20s. And there's three of them, and he can't. He's stuck where he is. He works for a
Yeah.
transit company, and he says, I can't leave. What do I do? Like I got my three kids at home. I can't kick them out. They're still in college, they're still in school. So these kinds of things you got to think about. Like you're going to have things are probably going to get a lot tougher going forward for a while.
Yeah.
I'm not a doomsdayer. I think eventually we're going to come out of this and it's going to be a lot better
We
for our
will.
children or grandchildren.
Right. But it's
Uh,
tough, Marty. I mean, that's my situation. I've got three kids, I just
yeah.
bought a house. But like I wrestled for a while, you know, is it good to buy a house? Is it not good to buy a house? And for me, what I decided was like having the stability and the security of having a place that's mine, that I'm not dealing with a landlord who's jacking my rent up, that I can make the improvements that I want, that I can put, like I built this studio here and I was going to wait 2 years to get chickens because we used to have them, and then we
Yeah.
had to get rid of them.
Yeah.
We've got the bird flu going on down here and eggs are going up. So I may be getting a flock sooner rather than later. But like I have the freedom to do all of those things despite the debt that I have with my mortgage. To me, that's an investment that was worth it. And everybody's,
Yeah.
situation
Everyone's
is
different.
different and choices
Exactly.
that they make.
Yeah.
But where I'm at, I'm out in the countryside in the woods.
Yeah.
There's a giant reservoir slash lake right across the street from me, plenty of fresh water, plenty of land,
Yeah.
plenty of game.
Yeah.
Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of benefits to being where I'm at.
There are.
Well water. I got a wood burning stove. So in a lot of ways, I can deal with, not that I want to, but some of these
Yeah.
hardships that being in a city, like you said, might make
Yeah.
life a little bit more difficult.
It does. But to your point about a house, I agree under one term. If you can afford it,
Hmm.
and if you're not over your head, then by all means, have your house is good. It's right. It's the way to do it. And I'll
Yeah.
probably have another house at some point too. But the thing is, if you're over your head and
Hmm.
you can't really afford it, things are probably not going to be much easier in the next few years. Now, one big advantage you have,
Right.
Dennis, also is you have 30-year mortgages, 30-year terms.
Hmm.
In Canada, the average is 5 years. So that
Oh,
means
you
if
did tell me
rates,
this before.
yeah,
Yeah.
so if rates jump, say to 7%, then the average person has 2 years before they have to renew halfway through their term. So they're going to go from 2 or 3% mortgage to 7%. That's crippling.
So in that 5 years, they're not paying it off in 5 years. They just have to.
No, the term is the
Okay.
amortization is what you're referring to. So the
Yeah.
amortization might be 25, 30 years,
Yeah.
but the
Okay.
term means it has to be renewed. The interest rate has to be
Gotcha.
renewed in five. Some
That's
people are doing
scary.
2 years, and a lot of people got really caught out. They were doing what they call an open or a
And the
yeah,
adjustable rate mortgages that we have
adjustable rate,
here. Yeah.
exactly.
The
So
arms.
they got a
Yeah.
premium there where let's say the rate was 1.5, 2%. They would probably get a quarter, half a point, and they're thinking, yeah, I'll take the cheap one. I'm thinking, are you nuts?
I
Like,
fell for that in my
what's
younger
the
years.
potential downside
Yep.
or
I got
upside on that?
scammed.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, so it's
That
scary.
screwed me because then after 3 years, and I didn't know what it was. My friend was a mortgage broker, and he's like, "Hey, this is a great deal, and in a couple years, if you want, you can refi." And I
Ooh,
didn't because I'm lazy or whatever, can't focus on it. And next
yeah.
thing I know, my mortgage rate shoots
Yeah.
up. I lost the house. It was
Yeah,
awful.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. I would never, in a case like that, my girls, forget where it is. Can you afford it where it is? Lock it in because there's
yeah,
no point taking a chance on it because like it. So if it's at 5%, what's going to go down to four, maybe three? But what can
right.
it go up to? I remember when I was young, my first house I ever bought, our mortgage rates were 18%.
Yeah,
That
yeah, I
was
believe
back in
it.
the 70s. Yeah,
I
yeah,
believe it. Yeah, and that's what they tell us. They're like, even at 7%, you're
yeah,
doing better than it was many years ago.
yeah, yeah,
And I think we're probably 5 or 6 where we're at right now. But
yeah.
I'm not living beyond my means. I can afford it, and things are going to get hard.
That's
But
it. That's the key.
you know,
And for anyone that can't, what I would suggest, I would say, is if you have a house that you're underwater, I don't have much hope right now, short term or the next couple of years for the
Hmm.
mortgage not in Canada. I'm referring to Canada, not I don't know about the U.S. But you can see what they're doing. Like they're when they revalue the house value, they get taxed based on the value of the house. So it's
Right.
advantageous to the governments to have our houses, a shortage of houses. So the average house in Toronto is 1.4, 1.6 million because the tax is going to be 10 to $20,000 a year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When
That's
I bought
yeah.
my first house, I paid $16,000 for it, and my tax was about 1,000, 1,200 bucks a year. Now, to buy a house in Toronto, you would pay the amount I paid for the house annually as a tax.
I can't believe $16,000. If
Yeah.
that's
That was
those
back in
prices.
68, 1968.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I talked to a woman, my first home, my neighbor across the street. She was in her 80s, and she's like, "Yeah, me." She called her husband Mister. She's, "Me and Mister bought this house when it was built. We paid $5,000 for it."
Yeah.
And I was like, "I just paid 165 for the same
Yeah.
house across
Yeah.
the street.
Exactly.
$5,000. What has happened in this economy?"
Yeah. Now you're
Yeah.
probably paying that much for your taxes.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's ridiculous, and then the housing market has doubled, where I'm at right now. Like the house I'm in right now, 2, 3 years ago was half of what I paid for it,
Now
but they
you
just kept going up. I needed to
They
get
do.
in.
And that's how a lot of people got caught. Now in Canada, we had a 10-year run where basically I'd say 5 of the last 10 years, there's been multiple offer listings up until 2 years ago where like my daughter tried for over a year. She probably bid on, I'm going to say 10 houses
Yeah, that was us.
before
That's what
she
we did.
got
We did
one.
about seven.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
awful.
before she finally got
Hmm.
one because of the, but anyway, we could talk about a lot of stuff like that, but how are
Yeah.
we doing for time? Are we,
We're good. We've gone, we're about an hour, so whenever you're ready to wrap it up. I mean, it's just been a great it
anything
just
else?
flows with us, Marty. But other thoughts on my mind. I mean, we covered a lot of different things, in terms I mean, it's great to hear your thoughts on kind of what you're looking at and where we're going. And I think looking at it's important to reflect that like this is a show, this is a plan. What we're seeing is not necessarily what's happening behind the scenes, and it's not happening at random.
No,
I think this is a very calculated chess game that
very,
we're
very.
witnessing the public end of it, but there's been a lot going on. Even looking at over the last few years at cryptocurrency, when I was doing the debrief, I would do research on these companies, and what I was amazed at was the infrastructure that was already there for these
Mhm.
cryptocurrencies, and they're
Mhm.
laying that foundation
They
for
are.
this transition that we're
They
going
are.
through, and it's going
Yeah.
to be ugly,
Now,
but
here's a thought. So I don't know if I talked to you about that. Like, so here's my thought on it. I believe that the government themselves, the governments of the world, are going to put um, a block in there with regard to Bitcoin. Like, if anybody, like what I tell our clients all the time is like diversification, diversification. There's the key.
right.
Don't be all in any one thing. So we have
Hmm.
crypto, we have altcoins. Well, we have Bitcoin, we have altcoins, we have gold, we have silver, we have real estate, we have savings, and if you got some antique cars or something, that's nice. Anything that
Right.
people want generally will
Yeah.
will be value. It'll hold its value regardless. But my thoughts on crypto are this. 10 years ago or 8 years ago when I got into crypto, about 2016, I think. Yeah, 16. Um, People like Jamie Dimon came out completely against crypto. They said it's a
Right.
Ponzi scheme. I'll tell you the names that did. The guy on TV that rings the bell, what's his name? Jim Cramer, Jamie Dimon, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, the guy from BlackRock. All of these guys came out and laughed at it and said it was a joke. All of
Right.
a sudden, these are the same people that are creating ETFs.
Yeah.
Now you get a different audience probably than, or do you just get all the guys from FFG on here, or does this go somewhere else?
This primarily is posted on the FFG site,
Okay, all right.
but then we've got a pretty good, I think after 2 weeks, they put it out to YouTube, and we got a pretty good
Okay,
following on YouTube. But it's the FFG's YouTube channel
yeah.
where this goes
Okay, so
out.
what was I talking about? I
You're
lost it.
talking about all these leaders, Warren Buffett and company, who were saying
Yeah.
Bitcoin's a
So
joke, it's nothing, and
So
now
I,
they're
I've
buying it.
explained it to most of the guys, I think, on FFG, but
Yeah.
I'll do it for those that haven't heard it. So basically, my belief is so uh, ETFs are a derivative. They're not an actual instrument. They're not actually, I
Right.
shouldn't say instrument, they're not actual Bitcoin. So my guess is if Bitcoin were to be used as a currency, it would be a perfect currency. Personally, I
Mhm.
believe that. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with governmental agencies and governments and politicians, they want something for themselves. They don't want to be part
Yeah.
of that system that is totally transparent, by the way. And you can see every transaction that's ever been done going
Yeah.
back to the
You're
beginning
right.
of time.
Hmm.
But you can't game that system. So for that reason, I think they're terrified that that could be a system, and then they're out of I wouldn't say out of a job, but they're not going to have the luxurious lifestyle that they have
Right.
in this system. So the issue then I find is that if you get a company like BlackRock, which right now I believe they're the second largest Bitcoin owner in the world,
Hmm.
next to
Wow.
the Satoshi wallets,
Hmm.
and I think Michael Saylor's third or fourth. So what happens, Dennis, is if you get a derivative of a token, you give your money to the brokerage exchange, which is a stockbroker. And one of the things that's attractive about that is, let's say most people that you know, they don't know much about crypto. The average person doesn't. They
Right.
think it's complicated, which it can be. It's
It can
dangerous
be.
because you can lose your money. So what they say is like they want to get in on this thing, but it's too much effort and they don't know if it's a scam or not. So they'll talk to their broker and say, "Hey, give me a couple of $1,000s worth of that." And the guy will
Right.
get it for them. So all they got to do is have a normal stock exchange account and they can get an ETF. So now I think they've got like 10 of them out there now just on Ethereum and Bitcoin. Might be more. But the idea is you send your money to the company will buy Bitcoin with your money. Meanwhile, they will freely trade it as deemed necessary because they have the right to trade to be able to manipulate the market to a
Right.
degree. Like last week, there was $500 million they sold in one fell swoop for the
Jesus.
Bitcoin. So the idea is they have their algos and that running, and they're going to try and game the system and make money. But here's the key. You buy the ETF, you buy your Bitcoin. You say, okay, I got Bitcoin. No, you don't. Because what
No.
happens is a year or two from now, that company has the rights, usually in their white paper or their initial offering, to say that if the fund doesn't work, we'll shut it down and you will be paid back what you're owed. So in other words, let's say Bitcoin gets to 200,000 and you're seeing inflation starting to run really bad and they say, okay, we're shutting it down. It's just too crazy. It's too wild. They'll give you a check and they'll send it to you and you'll get your check for your $200,000.
Hmm. Yeah, but not
But
your Bitcoin.
they still have the Bitcoin in cold storage and it's out of the system.
Yeah. Wow. It's
So you see,
it's with a dollar system that's probably going to fail.
yeah, right. So you end up with a bunch of worthless dollars if they fail, or you don't have Bitcoin, which is what you thought you were buying.
And that's the challenge with going with convenience, right? Like I remember learning to buy crypto was an awful
Yeah,
process with all the
it was.
different,
It's not near as bad as it was then. It was bad back in the
no,
old Wild West days. I mean, you had to have
yeah,
like it was. I've lost so much money, Dennis,
yeah,
well, besides being phished and people sending me emails and I just watch the money go out of my account. I had other issues where I bought a token called Rune, RUNE, and I'll never forget it.
yeah,
And I copied and pasted the address, but I had three users on my computer. So you're familiar with computers. If I have a user, right? And then
hmm,
I sign into the second user and the third users, I've got three wallets because you can have an Exodus wallet, only one, but one
right,
for each user. So what I did is I
hmm,
copied from Marty 1 to Marty 2, and I copied the address and I signed into Marty 2 and pasted. It's not the same address because now you're on a different computer. And I
right,
sent
right.
$5,000 worth of ruin back to the contract.
Oh, so you lost it.
And I'm
Oh,
talking 2000, maybe
yeah,
18, 19 is when it came out. Yeah,
yeah,
I've lost a lot. I'm slack and I'm still today not very good. I have a tendency, I need to settle down when I do things. I
hmm,
just jump too fast and I make a lot
same.
of mistakes, you know.
Yeah, you have to really be careful and look at it because
Dude.
it's gone. It's gone. Like
But
double and triple check.
I do believe that crypto will be here. I think blockchain technology is the future. Digital
Yeah.
ledger technology is it. I think Bitcoin eventually may fail.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't trust anything. I trust everything as long as I believe it's going to work.
Yeah.
And if it ever gets to the point where I think it's not, I'll divest myself. I'm not married to it. We have
Right.
targets, as you know, probably you've seen some of our reports.
Hmm.
Our last target, we said 108, and I told everybody, so we get to 108, I'm getting rid of a lot of this. And people go, no, you got to be a hodler and hang on. Well, I'm too old to be a hodler. I mean, at my
Yeah.
age, if I see that shiny star and I want it, I need to buy it because, like what Dick did, you saw that year, Dick and I, we
Hmm.
went up to 68, 69, and went down to 15. And it took him
Yeah.
2 years to get his money out to buy his condo.
I remember he was upset.
Yeah.
He was very
He was
upset.
so
Yeah.
sour. It was funny. He'd say,
Mhm.
I don't care if it's at 40,000. That's not going to help me because he needed to back at 68. But he's
Yeah.
so calm today. I find him so different. Do you ever notice him?
Yeah.
Like nothing
Yeah.
rattles him anymore. He used to be so
Yeah.
stressed out,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
now
Because he's not tied to
he's
the
not
ups and
tied
downs of the
to it. Yeah.
market anymore.
Yeah.
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 Wow. Marty, great advice, great insights. I always enjoy, picking your brain and hearing your perspective on things. I know I learn a lot from just hearing you talk 'cause I struggle with financial stuff. So hearing you break it down and looking at these things and just what's going on in the world has been
Well,
very valuable.
I don't know if I did much that way. I babbled a lot. I like just to talk, and I might not have said anything really worthwhile to the members, but it's fun just talking to you, Dennis. I don't get a chance anymore. I see the
Yeah.
guys once in a while, but like, I miss you over there. It was enjoyable. Always.
Yeah, I really enjoyed our time. That's why I like to try to schedule. You and I we do every couple of months. You and I jump
Yep.
on, and it's always great to
Yep.
catch up.
We'll
So I look
catch up.
forward to the next
Okay.
chat. Any final thoughts tonight, Marty, before we wrap it up?
No, I think right now the markets are in turmoil. I do believe there's a chance, as I mentioned, there's a good chance, there's still a chance we're going to visit the 75,000 level. And if they're going to do it, I think it might be this week, within the next week. I'll say when I say the week, today is the
Right.
4th of March. Between now and say the 10th or 11th, there's a chance we will go there. We were looking for a move for the past month down to the mid to low 80s.
Yeah.
And we got to 78 briefly, and we're at 85, 86 now. So we're
Yeah.
perfectly on target. But there looks like there could be one more leg. Now, it'll depend on what happens on Friday when Trump has his announcement. But I
Hmm.
would say my advice to anybody is if you're in here, don't listen to anyone's advice, including mine. Make sure you're comfortable with what you're doing. Make sure you
Right.
don't overtrade. Don't use leverage or you'll get wrecked. If you use leverage, I'm telling you right now, you're going to walk away licking your wounds. Don't buy a bunch of shit coins. They're the worst things out there. Right now, I heard somebody did a report the other day, and I think it was pretty legit. They said that this new company that does minting new coins, they said they created 50,000 meme coins in one day.
Jesus.
So
Different coins, like
yeah, just
different
crap
companies.
coins. Well, that one kid I
Yeah.
saw the video where he did a little coin, and right away in 10 minutes, they paid 35,000 for it, and he made 35 grand in 5 minutes because meme coins are basically what they say. They're a meme coin, but see, people
Right.
don't care. The average
Yeah.
person, not the main trader that have done some research, but the average person just sees one penny and then they see a buck and they go, wow, I'm going to get
Yeah.
rich. And
Yeah.
like you said, there's so many out there. What it's doing, Dennis, I'm finding is it's detracting from the legitimate tokens
Hmm.
that have been around for years, that have a good
Right.
use case, that
Hmm.
have proven themselves over time. And there's
Solid
only so much
leadership and
money, and a
yeah.
lot of people are doing that, and they're selling out of some of their better tokens to buy a million one penny tokens to try and get
Right.
rich.
Right.
So that would be another tip. Make sure you're comfortable. Don't over leverage. Don't over invest in the market and have a plan, whether or not you're going to hit a target and get out, or you got a target you have with buying a house or buying your wife a ring or whatever.
Hmm.
Don't stay in forever because everything trades. It's going to go up and it's going to go down. We've crashed
Right.
twice in Bitcoin already, and I expect that in the next year or so, I think we're going to have another big dump. If we get anywhere close to 150 this year, we'll have a big
Mm.
dump. Like right now, there's still potential that we're going to have a decent run in the next couple of months. And
Right.
if we do, if we get anywhere up around our target or like 135, 145, something like that, I'll be taking profit again,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But and don't sell. when it's fearful. When the market starts to drop hard, people get panic and sell it, and it's the worst thing you do. We said that two
Agreed.
nights ago, and we said just relax. If it goes down hard and you're down here, breathe, give it a day, and the very next day it came right back to where
It's
we
going to
were.
go right back up. Yeah,
Yeah,
that panic sell is a scary
the
thing because
emotions
now
are
you've lost everything, and then it goes right back to where it was, if not
exactly.
higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are basically the general things I think that I could help people. But I think a lot of these people on here know me and they probably heard all this before and they're going, I heard this before.
It's always great to hear again, Marty. It really is, and I appreciate it. So it's
Well,
helpful to
thank you,
me.
Dennis. It's good. It's good
Yeah,
talking to you.
yeah, always
Yes, sir.
is.
Yeah.
All right, Marty. Well, look, I look forward to our next talk. Thank you once again for sharing your thoughts and your wisdom. So, on behalf of Marty and the rest of the Future Forecasting Group, I'm Dennis Nappy II. Thanks for
Thanks,
watching.
Dennis. Good talking to you, buddy. Take care.
Likewise.